Hey, it's your old pal SimplySuperDave coming at you with a new podcast for you to listen to as we try to stay super in this crazy, crazy world that we live in. All right. What's amazing about today from just 20 years ago is the overwhelming involvement our brains have gone through. Let's put it this way. The topic of things you think about throughout the day determine kind of mood, how you are, how intelligent, all that neat stuff. You know, it's a machine that constantly keeps going, and it has a peak, and then it has a decline. Okay, I feel like I'm in the just about to do the decline part. You know, so I'm in the peakish part of my thinking. You know, I have so many years behind me, besides all the information I've taken in through books and media. I have plenty of life experiences to look at to go, okay, you know, what works, what's true to me, what doesn't work, what blah, blah, blah. And this is different for everybody, which is the reason why I always talk about your bubble, you know, because your bubble is what you create, what's inside of it. That's your world. And most of the time, our bubbles are filled with the very same things other people's bubbles are filled with, except it might just be different things. Like, I love sports, and there's other people that love sports too, but we may not like the same sport. But we love sports. You see what I'm saying? That's how life is. And then you got people that hate other people because of the sport they like. Those are the people I try to stay above. Okay? You know, I'm not going to... It's almost like... Okay, here's another good thing. Everybody... the racial issue, for example, I always laugh about because we're all part of the same race. The human race. So I don't understand where racial comes from, really, because if we are all from the same race, there might be cultural differences, which is where you get, you know, from where you're from, where your origination from, you know, whether it be Africa, Scotland, whatever, you know. But if you want to really go back to the very beginning, we're all from Africa. You know, so we're the human race, okay? From wherever we began at, from whatever color they were to whatever color we are now, all right? That's how all life works. Everything was one fox, now you got fucking different kinds of foxes, all right? You know what I'm saying? You know, and it's just, that's how life evolves. It's part of the plan. And so I don't get worked into those arguments so much, as I always point out that we are all part of the same race. So that's why I don't believe in racial issues. I believe that's a cultural difference, and you just don't understand somebody, so you hate them. It's that simple. And what you do with your hate becomes a lot of topic, but it's like gun violence, you know. You can put a gun on the table, and it doesn't do anything to anybody, but if you pick it up, you can either put it in the holster and never need to use it until you have to, or you pick up a gun and you want to shoot things with it, okay? That's, and then it gets broken down to more. Shoot things with it. I just like shooting things like boxes, okay? I like to hunt, so I like to shoot animals. And then you got, I just like to shoot anything. And those people are a problem. But eventually you're going to look back and see, you know, that's a deep topic. We're not diving into that. What we're trying to dive into today is the crazy world that we live in on an issue that's really coming up that you're going to have to deal with. It is September 1st. We are in the critical month, I call, of every year. 9/11, for example. A lot of things have happened in Septembers, if you want to go back. The Green Day song, Call Me When September Ends. Yeah, that's how I feel. I want to just fast forward through this month because this is going to be a crazy month for everybody. So one thing you need to be preparing for is the first steps of a new pandemic. Okay. And people are going to be like, what are you talking about? There is a lot of institutions like hospitals, airports, things like on that kind of scale that are preparing to reintroduce masks after Labor Day weekend coming up. In response to what? Now, apparently there is a new COVID strain from Canada. Now, we're in the United States. I would think if this is already a known thing, why haven't these restrictions started if that's what you're going to do? Because that makes sense. Why are you... Because this is something I've known about for about 3 weeks now. Started reading reports about people being in meetings to explain that they need to be prepared for new lockdowns and basically 2020 all over again. Now, with that news coming out, of course, I'm not the only one that would hear it. There's a lot of people out there saying that we're not going to do this again. We're not, whatever. So we're almost setting ourselves up, because when you do see the mask being enforced again, when that happens, you're going to know this next step is about to happen, and that's going to be the divide. There's a lot of people out there that are not going to want to comply to whatever mandates, rules, and restrictions that the government's going to want to enforce. And that's a hard situation to be on, because I was raised to always do what you're told, blah, 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 blah. My grandparents raised me, so I skipped a generation of being raised. So, but so did a lot of my generation, even if they had parents, because Generation X's parents were partiers, and they weren't home a lot. And we had a lot of time to ourselves. And then we skipped to this next generation where we did completely opposite. We coddled too much, and we have made parenting impossible on our own. So messed up. To create a really dysfunctional generation that doesn't even know those core values that got skipped. I think that's a big deal, and the reason why we are Generation X is because we have a mixture of the old way and new way, but we don't know how to gel it together, and or we do, but the world is full of people on this far side here and people on this far side there, and they almost want to make it like we're going to be, and this pandemic is going to be a perfect example of it, of a literal civil war where you have people all across the nation that are split down the middle. People that want to comply, and then you have people that are rebellion. And I hate to say it, but I'm on the side of the rebellion side because of the simple fact that for one, okay, here's a very good example. Logic says if you have something, you don't corral people in one spot because you're going to infect everybody in that one spot. So when you shut down businesses and force everybody to one store, I'm just saying, I don't care if you put the 6 feet mask and all that. I was in the paint business, house painting, for well over 15 years. And I've worn respirators and I've worn the mask, even in N95, all those cool ass masks. They are containments for you. They're not going to protect you from others. That's a fact. Okay. Now, if you have a respirator that seals to the face, you're cool. You got nothing to worry about. Just make sure you change out them filters every now and then. But as far as demask, that is containment for you. So I'm always supportive of the mask thing because I like people keeping their shit to themselves. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, but I don't like hearing people go, well, it protects me from you. No, it protects you from them. That's what the mask does. It protects you from other people, or them from you. That's what I meant. And that's important. That's a responsibility. If I was sick or if I had anything and if I wore a mask, then I would not be expelling it out to people if I was sick. Now, if I wasn't sick at all, I don't want to wear a mask. But if I was sick, if I felt under the flu, the cold, or whatever, I would wear a mask for a few days. And, that's not a bad thought process. It's almost like a perfect balance, knowing when to wear a mask and when not to wear a mask. So, no, I don't support wearing masks mandatory all the time. I only think you should if you feel under the weather. That's, to me, a perfect logical compromise for the mask debate. Do I think it should be mandated? No. But considering most of the people don't take that responsibility, I understand why you would mandate it, because you're forcing people that wouldn't wear it to need to wear it when they're sick or feeling under the weather. But making everybody who's not sick wear it could potentially make them sick from wearing a mask all day. So that's why I'm against the mandate of any kind with the medical field. Didn't know the WHO organization. I mean, think about the name of that organization. It sounds pretty much like a bad movie's evil empire character. It's just like an SNL skit. The WHO. And so I just can't take that seriously anymore. Sadly to say that the next political election is going to be greatly influenced by this next pandemic, that by December we should have lockdowns if everything goes to plan. But I don't know how that's going to play out. Like I said, if you do have more than half the country deciding to not comply and to stay open and to realize they can't enforce this on everybody if they all revolt against it, then I could see that possibly happening, and that changing the agenda for a lot of things. So I think 2024 is still up in the air on how that's going to go. But according to the government's plan, I think we're going to be in full pandemic mode by holiday season, which forces the entire 2024 year to be a lockdown until they decide to let it up, which I pretty much would imagine would be after the election. Thus, mail-in ballots are good to go again next year, which I'm totally against. If you can get out and go grocery shopping, you can get out and go vote. Voting should be taken more seriously in this country, and anyone that argues that it should be taken lightly and that you can do it from home or not show up in person at all to do it, then you don't take it seriously, and you're trying to fraudulate the election process in this country that other countries take very seriously. So my whole point is, if you don't care enough about it to show up, then your point in the argument doesn't matter to me. It's just that simple, okay? So you can argue with me about the mail-in ballots and the voting process in this country and the electoral vote, which I'm totally against now because I used to understand it. I got the point, but after the 2000 election, I thought they should have done away with it, and it's proved to be pretty fatal here later on in other elections. As we've seen too many elections now where the electoral vote and the total popular vote just doesn't, I don't know. It's crazy to me, the world we live in. And so, yeah, I kind of want to put it out there that you should be preparing for the next few months to be a little bit of a wild ride. And what side are you going to stand on? Are you going to pick a side at all? Is there a third option? Because this whole thing in Hawaii just keeps getting weirder and weirder by the moment. I understood that Marines came in on the beach and actually had to deal with the cops to kind of help the people. And at one point I heard that military and FEMA got into another altercation in the jungle somewhere on Maui. These are all interesting concepts. The fact that police were blocking roads, the water not being on for people to use, and the blue thing, and just the fact that there are very many rich people that weren't affected as other things, and how the fire jumps. But I don't know. That the more you dig into that, because it's ongoing and developing. I mean, this is something very current. The fact that books were out before the fires were even out. That's crazy. Did you hear the rooster? I don't know if you did, but this is an early morning podcast for y'all to be. So, like I said, September 1st. I had to get this out here because this is going to be a crazy month, and I would like it to already be over with. But to be honest with you, I'm scared to see where we're going to be at in just 30 days from now. So mark this on your calendar. That good old SimplySuperDave gave you a warning to be mentally prepared. Don't fall into it. Don't react to it. Just do what you feel is right. Follow your intuitions. If you want to comply, comply. If you don't want to comply, don't be afraid. Don't comply. You have those freedoms still in this country. They have to fight to take them away from you. Now remember, Roe versus Wade was overturned. Big issue. Why? Everybody was stuck on the abortion thing. The abortion thing, like I told you then, would be taken care of from state to state. And it's a slow process and it's happening. But trust me, we all know you can get an abortion out there. It's possible. I don't care where you live. If you have to travel to do it, then travel to do it. Plus, there are so many alternatives to even before you get to that point. You can take a pill, and abort things pretty damn early, like the next day. But Roe versus Wade was about medical privacy and protection, your freedom of choice in the medical field, which the medical field has been weaponized by politics to the point where it has culturally divided us. Who thought that the medical field, the healing process of our country would become a battleground? And that's really what has become. And it's sad because let's say the last pandemic wasn't quite the pandemic level that it should have been. Like, I think they anticipated to be worse and it never got worse. So they kept anticipating every variant to be worse than the next one. Blah, blah, blah. Because, they invested so much into this. They're going to treat each variant like, it could be the worst, And I get that. But here it is. We should have learned from our mistakes by now. And this time, we don't have Roe versus Wade. It's been overturned. So those medical privacies and things that prevented a medical mandate. Remember when they were going to mandate the vaccination, but it got overturned by the Supreme Court based off Roe versus Wade. Since Roe versus Wade is overturned, now if you want to enact a vaccine mandate, they can. So that roadblock has been removed. And when that happened, I said at some point in the future, there's going to be another pandemic. And this time, they're going to be able to mandate a vaccination. And the Supreme Court can't stop it because Roe versus Wade has been overturned. This is the steps to get to that. You got to have another pandemic. You got to have another reason. You got to push that vaccination. The medical companies, the pharmaceutical companies, it's so corrupt beyond. It's sad to see what's happening in this country alone. Other countries, not so much because their medical field is taken care of. The government, it's better to live in other countries as far as like if you want to deal with medical and being taken care of and actually go to the hospital and not have to worry about bankruptcy. Or wanting to take care of yourself because I don't even want to know if there is something wrong with me because I would be stressed out about it and how I'm going to pay for it. I shouldn't have to worry about the pay for it part. If I've been working my whole life, that money it should be taken care of. But the prices we charge for a bag of saline compared to other countries is astronomically so different. And you'll realize how price gouged this country has been and how weaponized our medical system has been put against us through politics and government control, and mostly the WHO Foundation. So upcoming over this next month, I'm not saying that the pandemic is not real, that the virus is not real. I'm just saying that it's probably not as bad as they are pushing it to be because they're using a situation to force control on you. We need more free thinkers than brainwashed people. We need more people to be willing to question, to not be afraid, to make sense of making their decisions. For instance, I'm not anti-vaxxer. I believe in vaccines because I know there's a lot of people out there that have low immune systems and they need vaccinations to survive. But I do not believe that every person should be vaccinated. There are some strong, normal, good, healthy people out there that we depend on to get the medical research for vaccinations from. You can't infect everybody. And I mean infect, because it's not normal to always need vaccinations. We have normalized it because we've become so dependent on the medical and the pharmaceutical companies and the pills and all the experimental drugs that have solved some problems but created a lot more attached to them, So it's like one of those commercials. Well, hey, we can solve this, but you're going to have some anal leakage. Is that worth the trade-off there? It's crazy. So if you don't want to be a part of that, you should have that freedom and right not to be. And that is what's at stake over the next few months. It's not so much of what's in best interest for you medically. You should be able to freely make that decision on your own and do whatever you feel medically with your own body to do. That's where I stand. But if whichever side decided to push its narrative to law, I'm against. I don't care if it's the right or the left. I'm against both sides. I believe in the freedom. I don't believe there should be a choice to make. I believe in the freedom of the choice to make. They're trying to take away that freedom of choice and say pick a side. That is anti-American. That is anti-freedom. That is anti-everything I stand for, which is the reason why I'm telling you all this, so you can be prepared to make your decision, because you're going to need to, and it's going to be tough. But you don't have to pick a side if you just pick the freedom. Stand on the side of freedom. Don't push the right. Don't push the left. Push freedom. It's really that simple. The right and left are opposite of freedom. We need more people to just support the freedom of choice. It's going to be a tough month, guys. So you got to stay super. And stay safe. And remember, don't get distracted and pulled into arguments that pull you away from the path that you're on. Stay focused. And remember, all that hate and fear, you got to deal with it. And out of it comes a lot of love and laughter. But you just can't give up on yourself, and you can't let the dark shadows overcome you. The light is within yourself, just like all the answers are. And nobody else is going to do it for you. You got to do it on your own. Be a free thinker, and don't believe all the hype. Nothing is true. Everything is permissible. Go be a conqueror out there, folks. Don't be a victim. And much love. See you when September ends.